There's a narrative in the Old Testament that, to be frank, I find to be the most unsettling in the entire Bible. It might even be deemed unsuitable for younger audiences. So, before you dive into this video, I want to emphasize that it may not be appropriate for all viewers and could potentially evoke some painful memories from your past. The tale I'm referencing is located in chapters 19 to 21 of the Book of Judges. Many are familiar with chapter 19, but often overlook the subsequent chapters. I believe there are crucial lessons for us to glean from this troubling account. First, I will recount the story in a vivid manner, and then we'll delve into the lessons it imparts. Let's begin with Judges chapter 19. In verse 1, we find ourselves in a time when Israel had no king. A Levite from a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a woman from Bethlehem in Judah as his concubine. It's important to note that this Levite man resides in northern Israel, while the woman is from the southern region of Bethlehem. The plot thickens as she proves unfaithful and returns to her father's home in Bethlehem, where she remains for 4 months. Feeling betrayed, the Levite decides to retrieve her, embarking on a journey from Ephraim to Bethlehem to win her back. Upon his arrival, he is warmly welcomed by her father, who insists he stay longer than he intends. This pattern of hospitality continues for several days until the Levite finally insists on returning home. It is at this point that the tragic events unfold as they travel through the southern region. They were approaching the city of Gibeah as the day was drawing to a close. The servant turned to his master and suggested, "Why don't we stop in this city of Gibeah and spend the night?" However, the master replied, "We will not stay in a foreign city where there are no Israelites. Let's press on to Gibeah." The servant then proposed, "Let's aim for one of these places, Gibeah or Ramah, to find shelter for the night." So they continued their journey, and as the sun set, they neared Gibeah in Benjamin. To their surprise, no one was willing to offer them hospitality. As night fell, an old man appeared in the square and asked, "Why are you still here? Hasn't anyone welcomed you?" They replied, "No, no one has taken us in." The old man then offered, "You can stay with me tonight." The Levite responded, "That's great. Just so you know, we don't need much, just a place to rest our heads. We have enough food for our donkeys, myself, and my concubine." The old man assured them, "No problem, you can stay with me." So, the Levite, his servant, and his concubine settled in for the night at the old man's home in Gibeah. But then, things took a dark turn. Wicked men from the city surrounded the house and pounded on the door, demanding, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have our way with him." The homeowner stepped outside and pleaded, "Please, do not commit this evil act, my brothers. This man is under my roof. Do not do this vile thing. Instead, I can offer you my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. Abuse them as you wish, but do not bring this disgrace upon my guest." The situation was about to escalate in a shocking way. In this video, we'll touch on this topic a bit later, but what unfolds next is truly unimaginable. Verse 25 reveals that the man refused to listen. Instead, he took his concubine and handed her over to the men, who then violated and mistreated her throughout the night until dawn, when they finally released her. This is why I mentioned that the content of this video may be deemed inappropriate for younger viewers and could evoke painful memories for some. Picture a group of depraved men taking turns assaulting this woman, subjecting her to a night of horror until the morning when she was finally let go. The tragic scene continues as the woman, exhausted and battered, returned at daybreak, collapsing at the threshold of her Lord's house. You can only imagine the toll that night took on her. She barely had the strength to crawl back and ultimately fell onto the porch. Now, pay attention to what happens next. When her lord rose in the morning, he opened the door to continue his journey, only to find his concubine lying near the entrance, her hands resting on the threshold. He called out to her, urging her to get up and join him, but there was no reply. The abuse had taken such a toll that she had succumbed to her injuries. The man then placed her lifeless body on his donkey and returned home. What follows is both tragic and horrific. Upon entering his house, he took a knife and dismembered his concubine into 12 pieces, sending each limb throughout the territory of Israel. Those who witnessed this act remarked that nothing like it had been seen since the Israelites left Egypt. Reflect on this. The man not only dismembered his concubine, but also attached a letter to each piece, dispatching them to the 12 tribes of Israel, detailing the horrific events that had transpired, the actions taken by his own brothers, part of the tribe of Benjamin, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. When the other tribes learned about the events surrounding this woman, they were astonished, noting that nothing like this had ever occurred in their history. However, there is much more to uncover in chapters 20 and 21, so let's hold off on that for now. Instead, I want to focus on some important lessons we can draw from this situation. The first lesson is that a lack of accountability in our lives can lead us to stray significantly from the right path. In Judges 19:1, which we discussed earlier, it states that during those times there was no king in Israel. When we are not held accountable, when there is no fear of having to justify our actions, we are more likely to make poor choices. We may believe we can act independently, without needing to answer to anyone, which is precisely what was happening in Israel. Although there was a law, it was not being upheld, leading people to engage in actions they never thought they would commit. The second lesson emphasizes the importance of recognizing every individual as an image-bearer of God. One man in the story expressed that it would be wrong for others to mistreat him, yet he felt it was acceptable to sacrifice his daughter and the concubine of another man. His perspective suggested that the worth of the man was greater than that of his own daughter and the concubine. We must ensure that we treat everyone with dignity and respect. This is particularly relevant when it comes to the content we consume online. If you find yourself viewing inappropriate material, I urge you to see each person depicted as a reflection of God's image, as if they were your own daughter. Consider how you would feel if someone were looking at your daughter in the same way. Lastly, I want to highlight another crucial point in this discussion. The further we drift from God, the more susceptible we become to actions we never thought we would take. When you examine the book of Judges in its entirety, you'll notice a community that has gradually moved away from God. This gradual deviation culminates in chapters 19 to 21, illustrating just how far the nation has strayed. We are not immune to this. If we fail to nurture a close relationship with God, we too risk wandering off the path. Like the Israelites, we might find ourselves engaging in behaviors that, a decade ago, we would have sworn we would never consider, like divorce, infidelity, losing our jobs over inappropriate online activities, or experimenting with substances. The truth is, the more we distance ourselves from God, the more exposed we become to sin. Unfortunately, the narrative doesn't conclude in chapter 19. It actually intensifies. Chapter 20 reveals a civil war among the 11 tribes of Israel who turn against the tribe of Benjamin due to a horrific act committed against one of their own. I encourage you to delve into chapters 20 and 21 for a deeper understanding. In summary, this conflict results in a staggering loss of life on both sides, leaving only 600 men from Benjamin alive. In chapter 21, the remaining tribes begin to feel compassion for the tribe of Benjamin, fearing their extinction since there are no women left for these men to marry and continue their lineage. Now they face yet another dilemma: the potential loss of one of their 12 tribes. This brings me to my fourth lesson. Every poor choice we make carries consequences that are beyond our control. While the actions of the Benjamites were indeed wrong, the decision made by the other 11 tribes to confront and kill them was theirs to bear. And now they must face the repercussions of that choice. The Benjamites, too, must confront the fallout from their own missteps. It's important to understand that while you can choose to sin, you cannot choose the consequences that follow. Every decision you make has repercussions, and unfortunately, we often have no say in what those repercussions will be. In this case, the Israelites decided to kill the men from a clan called Gibeah, leaving behind 400 women who had never been with a man. These women were then given to 400 of the 600 Benjamite men to help them reproduce. However, there's a significant issue. With 600 Benjamite men and only 400 wives available, 200 men were left without partners. This illustrates how one poor decision can lead to another. Next, the Israelites realized they had made a vow not to give their daughters to the Benjamites. However, they found a loophole. They could not directly give their daughters, but if the Benjamites were to take them, that would be a different story. So, they devised a plan for a festival where their daughters would be dancing. They essentially told the Benjamites that if they found and took the women during the festivities, it would not violate their vow. Thus, at the feast, these 200 Benjamite men went and seized the women while they were celebrating. I understand this story might seem a bit wild, and I've done my best to condense it for you. The key takeaway is that one poor choice can spiral into a series of unfortunate events, impacting many lives. If you revisit this narrative, you'll see how numerous individuals suffered due to a single bad decision. While some of the men from Benjamin faced the repercussions they deserved, many innocent people from Benjamin lost their lives in battle. The residents of Gibeah also perished, and their women were taken from their homes to be given to the Benjamites. Additionally, other women were abducted by the Benjamite men, torn away from their families. All of this chaos stemmed from a chain of poor choices. However, I want to share a final lesson with you today. God extends His grace to us, even amid our most damaging decisions. The book of Judges concludes with a poignant reminder that the Benjamites took the women they needed from the dancers they captured, returned to their land, rebuilt their cities, and settled back in. Each Israelite returned to their own tribe and family, reclaiming their inheritance. The last verse of Judges encapsulates the entire book, stating that during those times there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what seemed right in their own eyes. While God showed mercy by allowing the tribe of Benjamin to recover and avoid extinction, their choices still carried consequences. Remember, every decision we make has repercussions, often beyond our ability to measure or control. Until next time, take care and God bless you.